Hello, everybody. Firstly, I want to thank Steve for his resub, 2 months, and for using the new Gigantify emote function, which is probably best used on Polly. Sorry for the delay in starting. There was a power cut in the house a couple of days ago, and it wiped a load of settings off my PC, and I've just spent the last chunk of time trying to get OBS to talk to the mic. So if anybody could tell me if this sounds usable for the time being until I can get that working properly. Otherwise, welcome to the Robert H. Wilde True Crime Show, which after a bit of a technical delay will be happening tonight. I'll be honest, it got to about midnight and I thought, not really sure I'm going to if this is going to happen, but here we go. You'll be pleased to know there is a new Polly emote coming, which Steve has kindly done, where you can sort of an never-ending zooming in of Polly. What I want you to imagine is that sometimes that's what I see when I wake up in the morning. Okay, so welcome to everybody in chat. Welcome Foxy, welcome King Cobra, welcome Steve, welcome Thelonious. Don't think I've missed anybody. Right, we've got 3 stories tonight, providing everything keeps working. We have a classic British serial killer. We have and 2 modern American cases. One case so modern the court resolution was only a few weeks ago, and it's I mean, normally when you do a serial killer case, people say things like, "Oh, that's horrifying," but it's about murder. What I'm going to close with is a case that, even though nobody actually died, is every bit as horrific for its implications. So, look forward to that, everybody. Right, no one said you can't hear me, so I'm guessing I fixed that. So we'll carry on. Firstly, a shout out to the awesome streamers in chat. Foxy Harley is a variety streamer. Steve Forward is an excellent guitarist. King Cobra is a streamer. I think that's everyone. So, I don't think. Do you stream Thelonious? Or have I got that wrong? I'm going to tell you first the story of John Christie. Now, I have no actual connection to John Christie's crimes, but what I will say is that my mother, one of my mother's earliest memories as a little girl, is hearing about his arrest and the discoveries on the radio. So I've always had a particular interest in John Christie, as had my mother. My mother wasn't really into what we would now call true crime, but she was certainly into remembering what it was like for her to sort of just really be aware of things and discovering this happening on the radio. Yeah. So, I've spoiled this. I wasn't supposed to tell you we were doing John Christie. I was supposed to go through my first piece, and then there's a surprise. But I've been so befuddled with the audio errors, I've completely forgotten that there was a build up and a surprise in this, and I was going to wrong foot you. So pretend I've not said anything. And we'll start again. I didn't think you were going to stream. It's been an awful day, Ditch, and I started very late due to technical errors. But here we are. So let's enjoy it. Forget. Ditch, you've come in at the perfect time because I've just been so befuddled that I've inadvertently given away the twist that's coming in this true crime story. No, I wasn't sure, but here we are. Polly is downstairs asleep. She's very happy, not confused. Not sure if she'll come in. In fact, she was a bit confused because she was sat on a sofa facing the sofa, and I walked past and she was told me off for surprising her. I was like, well, that's not my fault, is it? You could look into the room. Right, so let's discuss the case of Timothy Evans. So during the Easter of 1948, Timothy and Beryl Evans moved to the top flat at 10 Rillington Place. He was 24. He had a terribly low IQ. She was 19 and they hadn't been married for a year yet. That October, Beryl gave birth to a daughter called Geraldine. They had a tempestuous relationship. Both were immature. Tim had a violent temper. He was a compulsive liar. And they argued and fought. Beryl became pregnant again, and the couple could not afford the bills. However, late in 1949, Timothy went into a police station in Merthyr Tydfil and told them, "I have disposed of my wife. I have put her down the drain." He said his wife was desperate to abort her baby, and he'd linked up with a man who'd given him the pills to do it, but the pills had killed her. He'd panicked, stuffed her body in the drain, got someone to look after Geraldine, and fled. London police were called, and they went to discover that the drain cover took 3 people to shift, and there was no body. On being told this, Evans modified his story, saying his neighbour John Christie had given Beryl the pills. They'd killed her, and Christie told him he was going to put the body in the drain and give Geraldine to people to look after her. And Evans should sell or give Christie everything, and he wanted to know. Now, Evans wanted to know where Geraldine was. A superficial search couldn't find her until a renewed search found 3 bodies in an outdoor building. Beryl, wrapped in a blanket and tablecloth, Geraldine, and a 16-week-old fetus. Both Beryl and Geraldine had been strangled. Beryl had been beaten. There was no sign of any abortion medication having been taken or any other medication. Evans was arrested. According to police records, he claimed he'd argued with, beaten and strangled Beryl due to mounting debts and their long history of arguments. He was charged. Then started to claim all his confessions were false, he didn't do it, and blamed Christie for murdering them all. However, while awaiting trial, he would often repeat his confession and then repeat his denial. He went on trial for the murder of Geraldine on January 11th, 1950. They felt it was the best chance of a verdict if they tried him for the daughter. Christie was one of the prosecution's main witnesses, telling how Evans had argued with his wife. Evans was found guilty. He appealed, but was hanged on the 9th of March 1950. There's just one problem. Evans didn't do it. John Christie did. And now, slightly spoiled, we get to the story of John Christie. And how not only did he kill a number of women, he also triggered Timothy Evans' trial and execution by the state. John Reginald Halliday Christie was born on April 8th, stupidly my note says 1989, but that can't possibly be right. John Christie doesn't sound very Welsh. He wasn't, he was from Oxford, I think. He was the 6th of 7 children, but had an unhappy childhood. He was distant from the children. His father was distant from their children and beat them for tiny things. His mother was smotheringly overprotective. He had trouble with his sisters and disliked his grandfather. When the latter died, Christie saw the body and felt a feeling of power over the man who terrified him. He developed an interest in death, coffins, graves, and the dead. Sorry about that. Back now. Christie developed an interest in things we would consider very morbid. He won a school scholarship at 11, sang in a choir, and was a Boy Scout. On leaving school, he became a projectionist assistant. Hello, Polly. As an adult, he struggled to fit in. He was also distant, and he struggled to perform sexually, leading him to be bullied as Can't Do It Christie and Reggie No Dick. He clearly developed disturbed views on women, but it's exactly what they were. Whether a rage and a fear, or both of these things. He joined the army in 1916 as World War I raged for service in France, and spent a month in hospital after being blinded by mustard gas. Whether for physical or psychological reasons, the attack meant he could only ever talk quietly again. Hello, Polly. Christie, however, dramatised the situation and said he was blind and couldn't speak for 3 years. You often see this repeated in accounts of his life. I'm fairly sure, given what I've read, that that's not actually true, and he used to just sort of exaggerate, and that will come out at his trial. Christie married Ethel Simpson on May 10th, 1920. They first separated after 4 years, during which Ethel had suffered a miscarriage, and Christie frequently visited prostitutes, the only place where he could reliably perform thanks to the power imbalance. While apart from Ethel, he flitted between jobs and prison, mostly for stealing. For instance, when he was a postman, he was stealing postal orders. However, in 1929, he was convicted of assault after he hit the prostitute he was living with, Maud Cole, on the head with a cricket bat. However, in 1939, when he came out of prison, he wrote to Ethel, and the couple reconciled and began living together again. It was possibly the worst decision she would ever make. He stopped stealing, but again, he frequented prostitutes. For cat lovers, I regret to inform you that Polly has been in here and then left again, so we will see if she will go to Cat Cam. They moved into the top flat in 10 Rillington Place in London in 1937, and a year later they moved into the ground floor one. This meant they had exclusive use of the back garden. The building was 3 stories at the end of a terrace, with a single outdoor toilet and an outdoor wash house. The wash house is the building I referred to earlier, where they found some bodies. It was prone to loud noise from a railway. Christie, who had always been panicky and dramatic when it came to his health, was hit by a car, had to stay in hospital, and became practically hysterical, notching up over 150 doctor's visits in the next 15 years. When World War II started, Christie was accepted into the War Reserve Police, despite his criminal record, meaning he shouldn't have been. Nobody did the relevant search. Here he became so infamous for sticking to the precise letter of the law, the British called him the Himmler of Rillington Place. He also met and began an affair with Gladys Jones, until her husband discovered and beat him. At this point, Christie's life took a turn. As you will have no doubt gathered. Ditchboy says, good luck trying to get that many appointments with the doctor around here. Yes, I don't think these days in the NHS in Britain you could get 150 appointments in 15 years. Perhaps 1.5 would be more accurate. Obviously, you know this guy's a serial killer, and regrettably we get to the victims. So Christie's first murder victim was Ruth First. She was 21, an Austrian living in Britain during the war, and a munitions worker. Christie hired her for sex multiple times, but one day, without any planning, he grabbed a rope and strangled her. He would later claim she'd asked him to run off with her. Nobody really actually knows why he did this. Finding himself with a body, he first stuffed it under the floorboards of the lounge and then buried it in the back garden. This obviously had an effect on Christie because he quit his police role, and he also discovered he quite liked it, unfortunately. He was soon employed as a clerk at a factory making radios, where he met Muriel Eady. This time, Christie was planning ahead to kill her. He told her he'd made a cure for her bronchitis. When she was in his flat, he told her to inhale from a jar via a tube, which she did. However, Christie had rigged this device up, see if she was actually inhaling gas from the gas supply. In those days, inhaling gas from the gas supply quickly knocked you unconscious due to the carbon monoxide. Christie raped her while strangling her and buried her in the garden. I'm fairly certain the gas doesn't work like that now. Although boilers do make you quite ill, don't they? Anyway, the next thing that happened was the Evans affair. As we've covered, Christie effectively, most probably, killed Evans' daughter and wife, and Evans was hanged for it. How did this happen? Well, despite the garden of 10 Rillington Place being 4.9 by 4.3 metres, the police, despite looking for a missing and probably murdered person, Mr. Christie and buried his victims in the garden. If you think I'm being unfair, they might have been under the soil. There was actually a leg bone being used to prop the fence up. Christie would later confess that he had killed Beryl. He would claim he'd talked her into believing he could perform abortions, so she'd let him in his flat, and he'd done this just so he could rape and strangle her. When Evans named Christie the killer, police didn't bother really investigating him. They saw him, he's a veteran and he was a wartime policeman, and thought this gave him some sort of special status. Whereas Evans was young and unrefined and rather dim. And there was a massive class issue here. Also, at the trial, certain builders were never questioned. We will get back to that. And due to this miscarriage of justice, not only Evans but 4 more women would die as a result. Christie joined the Post Office Savings Bank but was sacked when they discovered he had a criminal record. So the Post Office Savings Bank were actually bothering to do things the police should have done. The murders paused for a few years, although the exceptionally racist Christie and Ethel carried on a fractious relationship with the Jamaicans who had moved in, culminating in an assault accusation. Unfortunately, Christie decided it was time to quit his job and quit Ethel, and he strangled her to death in 1952. He told everyone different stories about where she'd gone. He'd tell people, she's gone to Sheffield or she's gone to Birmingham. And he wrote to her relatives to tell them she was too sick to write to them herself. He used to say, she's got rheumatism in her fingers, so I'll be doing all the writing. He then liquidated her assets, selling almost all the furniture. Christie had now moved into a very much advanced murderous phase. He went on a spree. He killed 3 women in 2 months. Kathleen Maloney was a prostitute, lured back to his flat, killed by gas again. He devolved the gas slightly, but it was still essentially the same principle. Rita Nelson, who was 6 months pregnant, suffered the same, perhaps lured by the promise of an abortion. Hectorine McLennan and her boyfriend looking for a room, even briefly staying at Rillington Place, but Christie got Hectorine alone one day and killed her when her boyfriend came looking for her. Christie sympathised and hoped the search went well. All 3 were put into what was in effect a cupboard set in the kitchen wall, which he then wallpapered over. Christie explained his technique. If you want to read True Crime Dossiers 4, I will have the full quote from Christie in that when it comes out. I'm not going to repeat it here for the simple fact that it doesn't actually make sense and nobody really understands how it would work. So he wasn't actually doing what he admitted to. Anyway, you may be wondering how Christie got captured. For reasons that Christie never really explained, perhaps just that he was desperate for money, he decided he would leave the area for a bit and sublet his flat to someone else. He took a payment for a couple who started using it. However, this was actually illegal in his contract. The landlord found out on day 1 and threw the couple out. With Christie absent, he said the first floor tenant, Beresford Brown, could borrow the kitchen. And Brown tried to fit a shelf and discovered the alcove and the bodies. Police immediately searched for Christie, who, having heard this, lived several days homeless in London until a police officer spotted him. On his person, along with things like an ID card, was a newspaper cutting about Evans. When they said to Christie, "We've got 3 bodies in an alcove," he confessed to that and killing his wife. But that was it. He blamed the women. He said they were trying to extort money, or it was a mercy killing, or the women had hit him. We will be returning to Evans in a minute. He denied killing Joe. Then the police, then he confessed to the bodies in the garden, but only after they were found. And in fact, he was confessing to everything when it was brought to him. He was rather hoping that people might not discover everything. And when it became apparent they had found everything, he confessed to killing Bill. However, he always denied killing Geraldine. Apparently admitting to killing a baby was where his line was. This made just to avoid being murdered in prison. Police tried Christie for Ethel's death. This is a country with the death penalty. You don't need to be convicted for killing 20 people because you're going to die after one. So they charged him with Ethel's death. He claimed he was not guilty by reason of insanity, but he was found very sane. The trials were just 4 days. The jury considered for just an hour. He declined to appeal and was hanged on July 15th, 1953. But the story doesn't really end there, because the general public were very much aware that this possibly meant Evans had been hanged while he was innocent. Well, this ditch is where we're going now. The Home Office said we will look into it, but they did an incredibly short inquiry and decided that Evans had indeed killed both of them, and Christie's confession was a lie. Naturally, the public weren't happy with this, and a huge campaign started which prompted a second, longer, more detailed inquiry. Again, an inquiry by the government not wanting to destroy the police, and a police force not necessarily wanting to implicate themselves, decided that Evans had definitely killed his wife, but he hadn't killed his daughter, and as he'd been convicted of killing his daughter, he was pardoned. Yes, there's still a huge debate over that. So, let's look at some of the problems here. So yes, Evans did often repeat the confession he had made, but that confession had major problems. Firstly, it was far too wordy and advanced for somebody like Evans to ever actually come out with. I've got the text of 2 of the confessions in the book, but you don't need me to read you along a somewhat odd confession here. Secondly, and most importantly, his confession said things that were impossible. Firstly, he confessed that he killed Geraldine with a rope and left it around her. He didn't. There was no rope on Geraldine. What's this ditch? Yes, I'm sure the corpse in the ground was very happy, being pardoned for a crime he was hanged for. Well, because he was pardoned, he was actually dug up out of his unmarked grave and given to the family to have an actual grave, which again is absolutely not cheery to him at all, because he's dead at this point. He said he immediately put the bodies in the wash house and locked the door. Again, this was impossible because the workmen had been in and out for several days and kept their tools in it. There were no bodies in it. Wood had been placed in front of the bodies when they were found, but this flooring had been pulled up after Evans had gone, and had been given to Christie. Yes, he was a compulsive liar. He couldn't read, and he confessed that he said everything because he was afraid the police would beat it out of him. Christie, who definitely did strangle women, also confessed to doing it. It was only in 2003 that the Home Office finally said there was no evidence that Evans killed his wife. However, Evans' execution did have a direct result. There was already a debate over capital punishment and the death penalty. As the public realised what happened to Evans, it is perhaps the trigger point into having that abolished, because at the time the British legal system could in no way guarantee that they were only executing guilty people. Yes, conveniently after everyone involved in cocking it up was dead, retired. Yes. Now I want to give a little bit of space to the Evans was guilty camp, because they still exist. Beryl's younger brother, Peter Thorley. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you very much for resubscribing. Good evening from Michigan. Good evening from the UK. Beryl's younger brother has spent his whole life convinced Evans murdered his sister. Unfortunately, when he finally got the chance to put his years of research in a book, he came out and said he was deeply unhappy with the version the publishers actually published. For legal reasons, I'm just going to leave that implication hanging. The critic did a review of Thorley's book and said the explanation has to be, this is the explanation for why people then and now sometimes think Evans did it, they would rather believe that there were two stranglers in the same house at the same time blaming each other than accept that an innocent man could be hanged for another man's crimes with the full support of the police, the press, the legal system, the Court of Appeal and the Lord Chief Justice, two inquiries and a succession of government ministers. But he probably was. So, we have Evans, who had been bullied into making a false confession. I don't just throw this stuff together. Wait till you hear story 3. We'll be picking that up. And if you don't think that what happened to Evans can happen now, yeah, it will. You'll find out. Anyway, what do we think of that then? I mean, I would ask chat, who do you think did what? But chat have been quite vocal and saying what they think. Anyway, so I think we're all agreed. I'll just pause now for somebody in chat to go, no. While I wait to see what chat says, I'm just going to see if the new emote has gone through. No, not yet. Right, the Home Office will probably pop round to anyone that think Evans didn't do it. Yeah. This stream's going to make me go. Let's face it. By the end of this stream, I'm not going to be popular with the police in either the UK or California, or people who like pigs. So yes, content warning. If you are particularly fond of pigs in any way other than eating the things, you probably don't want to hear the next story. That's just a warning for animal lovers. If you like cats, I'm afraid I'm letting you down as well. 16 pigs to eat a body according to Snatch. It's funny you should say that, Didge, because that is almost exactly where we're going now. Shall we get into this then? Shall we get into the case of Susan Monica? I feel like using my own emotes. It's a bit weird, isn't it? Susan Monica was born as Stephen Buchanan in California in 1948. She joined the US Navy, served in the Vietnam War, had an honourable discharge and transitioned into Susan. She moved into engineering, ran a successful fencing business called White Queen Construction, and in 1991 she was able to buy a 20-acre farm in Oregon. Now, all the reports say the word farm. What she actually brought was a rough patch of land that she then had to start knocking down and building on, sort of. So first, she organised a barn, then she planned to build a house. She had great trouble in finding reliable staff. In 2012, a handyman, Stephen Delacino, disappeared. In 2013, handyman Robert Haney disappeared. Ditch says, I probably wouldn't want to eat the bacon from a pig that ate human corpses. Yeah, Ditch, you know exactly where this story is going. You know where this story is going. Haney had replied to Susan's advert on Craigslist. He was paid in cash. He could live on the property and he had to build the house from scratch. Some would argue that when two of your handymen go missing in the space of 2 years, it might be a bit suspicious. And if there's one thing we are in this crime show, it's suspicious. Anyway, Haney's family realised he'd gone missing after 2 months, so they went to see Susan, who said, I haven't seen him for 4 months, but you can take his belongings. Take his belongings. Do you know what he'd left behind when he disappeared? His clothes, his tools, and his dog. Yeah. Subtle, isn't it? I mean, that's really trying hard to cover up your murder. I'll just leave the dog running about. Nobody'll. Ditch says poor doggo. I would like to point out that the dog is about the only thing in this story that lives. So, right, the dog is about the only thing that is fine. So, police wanted to try and find Haney. They looked into him, and they discovered, someone's using his food stamps. This is all logged. Wait a minute, they're using his food stamps 25 miles away at Walmart. So they went to the Walmart and they looked at the security camera footage. And do you know who was using his food stamps? Susan. So at this point, the police thought this was just a case of fraud. Oh, what was that meow for? Because you have sympathy for pigs. Oh, I'm a bit upset. They thought this was just fraud. Haney disappeared. Susan's using his food stamps. So they went to just have a word with her. And as they advanced down the property, they found a human leg sticking out of a pond. Once again, Susan is really not trying very hard to cover up what's going on. This triggered a full-scale search. For 3 weeks, detectives pored over the 20 acres. It was full of dumped refuse, animal bones, no water, no sewage. They needed respirators. They dug over 50 holes. They really went for it. And they found the remains of both handymen. It had been discovered that they'd been killed, chopped up and fed to the pigs. Now, due to various laws, you can't really keep pigs that have eaten people alive, so sadly the pigs were killed. Also, a witness told the police that Susan regularly fed the pigs the corpses of pets and other animals that were on the farm. She would also threaten anybody that angered her with killing them and feeding them to the pigs. Once again, we are not dealing with a criminal mastermind. How these men actually died is still not clear. Monica claimed that Delacino shot himself in the head, but the police said he's been shot 5 times in the head. So he said, we got into a fight. He took some of my guns and I shot him in self-defence. Yeah, but several of the shots had been fired into this man as he was face down on the ground. Okay. She claimed that Haney's disappearance was nothing to do with her, but purely coincidentally, a month later she found him in the pig pen already being eaten alive, and put him out of his misery and buried him. Obviously, one, the police didn't believe this, and two, it's also illegal to murder somebody if they're being put out of their misery. Right, so there's no law in California that says if somebody's sort of been disemboweled, you can just shoot them dead. So that's also a problem. Yes, she shot him. She claimed he shot himself in the back of the head 5 times. Once again, we're not dealing with Moriarty on this one. They also realised that Haney may or may not, they weren't really sure, but it's possible, she actually cut his legs off while he was alive and then fed him to... Yeah, it's not getting any better, is it? Anyway, Susan, once again, decided she would make the situation every bit worse by telling the police, I do not value human life very much. The only thing wrong with this planet is there's people on it. If it weren't for us, all the animals, dodo birds and whatever else would still be here. If you thought Susan couldn't make it any worse than that, she did. She sent a birthday card from someone she'd been in prison with, signed, "The sweetest murderer in Jackson County." Now, Ditch, you've raised a very interesting question, which we'll get to in a minute. Her defence attorney said just because she's different and strange and weird doesn't make her a murderer. But the jury took less than an hour to go, yes, she is. And she was given 2 consecutive 25-year sentences and is currently in prison then for 50 years. There is, however, a very enduring mystery. As Stitch said, these pigs don't appear to have eaten all of these men. There were still scraps around the property. Well, here's the thing. At one point, as they were arresting her, when she had lost her composure, Detective Eric Sanderson said, what will they find out there? And she said, if she told me about the 17 others, she'd spend the rest of her life in jail. Now, they only found traces of 2 people, but the police genuinely believe that somehow, some way, perhaps because at that point she had a sufficient number of pigs, she killed a lot more. But yes, if you're wanting to do the traditional, oh, I'll just feed them to the pigs, it didn't work very well in this instance. But given Susan's general competence at crime, that's probably Susan's fault and not the pigs. I feel I've just said something potentially deeply offensive, so we'll move on. So yes, so it looks... Yeah, I mean, it looks like the pigs did very well with a lot of people, and for whatever reason, not 2 of them. Well, somebody said they wanted more animal-based stories. They didn't specify that they had to be. But the dog's fine. The dog was fine. It says, maybe one said one was a clown and the pig said, I'm not eating that, he tastes funny. Ba-boom-tish. Yeah. The Holiest Monk says, I may not eat bacon again. I mean, I feel what we should take from this story is if you can eat bacon, because the pigs would eat you, right? I mean, you're both up for eating each other. It's not like, a chicken. If you eat a chicken, that chicken's not really going to do any damage. But a pig will eat you. It's like a tiger. I'm not saying eat tigers, but a tiger will eat you. And a group of pigs. If I suddenly buy a lot of pigs, you're going to get concerned, Ditch says. I better get on to livestock.com and cancel that order. Yeah. We've looks like we're not going to get a cat visit tonight. Nah, never going to happen. Love bacon too much, says Selene. Exactly. So, the John Christie story, although interesting, is part of a two-part theme for tonight's show. We do have a theme, and that theme is police getting confessions out of people who are otherwise innocent. And the John Christie case was a historical one, and when you grow up in Britain, there's this sort of sense that in the 70s police would just throw people downstairs until they confessed to stuff, and that it's fine now. Well, it's not, and I'm going to bring you a very, very recent case from California. The events in this case start in 2018, but the court case, which actually clarified and solved them, has only recently ended. And if you're living in California, or indeed America, or perhaps in Britain, it's an example that you aren't really safe with the police always. It is entirely possible that if you find yourself with the wrong police, even if you haven't done anything, you can still end up in a lot of trouble. So this is the case of Thomas Perez Jr. On August 7th, 2018, in a city near Los Angeles. Let's not scaremonger though. Yeah, I feel it's a bit late for that. It's a crime channel. There's a certain amount of paranoia. Most police aren't going to do that. Now, Ditch, wait till you see what happens at the end of this story. So, Thomas Perez Sr. left the house he shared with his son to walk the dog to the mailbox. It was evening, and while the dog returned, it was alone. Perez Sr. did not return. The next morning, he was still absent. So with his son not home, Thomas Perez Jr. rang the police. Perez Jr. will now simply be referred to as Perez. He told the police his father was missing. Officer Joanna Pena, who spoke to him as the call was made, was instantly suspicious. In her words, he was distracted and unconcerned with his father's appearance. She and Sheila Foley went to the family home, but they saw bloodstains, found the father's wallet and phone, and Perez was brought to the station for questioning. They claimed a police dog detected the scent of a corpse. Police began an interrogation, applied for search warrants to look through digital equipment they'd seized, and after a 17-hour interrogation, Perez had confessed he had killed his father. He was taken to a psychiatric hospital, read his Miranda rights for the first time, and charges were prepared. It's just one problem. Perez had not killed his father. In fact, that night, Perez's sister rang up to say the father's alive and well. He'd gone to see a friend, forgot to tell his son, then gone to LA International Airport because he was going to visit his daughter. Perez was kept in hospital for 3 more days before he was reluctantly freed. The bloodstains came from finger prick diabetes tests. What had happened here? The police officers had decided that Perez had killed his father, and the 17-hour interrogation was a long process of bullying him into confessing, or as a judge termed when this case went to court, unconstitutional psychological torture. Officers insisted Perez had killed his father, and he must confess that he'd done it and perhaps didn't remember because of his medication. At one point they drove him around saying, that medication you're taking has caused you, Thomas, to have some issues. Where can you take us to show us where Daddy is? We need to find Daddy right now. As he began to beg for his medication, they told him, we're not going to take you to hospital, it's not going to help you. This interrogation was all videoed. At one point they brought the family dog in and told Perez that the dog would need to be destroyed for the mental trauma of watching him murder his father, and that he should say goodbye. On the video, Perez can be seen crying, sleep deprived, mentally ill, undergoing with symptoms of withdrawal from psychiatric medications. He starts yanking his clothes off, pushing his hair and hitting himself. Police said things to him like, it did happen, you killed him and he's dead. You know you killed him. You're not being honest with yourself. How can you sit there and say you don't know what happened, and your dog is sitting there looking at you, knowing that you killed your dad? Look at your dog. She knows because she was walking through all the blood. There wasn't any blood. They took naked photos of him to document injuries he'd sustained killing his father, even though he had no injuries. They called up a family friend, Carl Peraza, and they told him they had complete proof Perez had done it, and they needed to get Perez to confess. He said things, I wanted to talk to Tom to tell him he's in very, very big trouble, that he has to recall what happened to his father. Only when he left the interrogation room was the family friend told there was no evidence, but he wasn't allowed to talk to him again. Then they changed tack. They told Perez they'd found his father's body, and it had been stabbed to death. Broken apart, completely beaten down, traumatised, Perez confessed, and then when left alone tried to hang himself, hence being taken to a psychiatric hospital. Once he was finally released, police did not let it go and applied for a warrant to place a GPS tracker on his car, determined to find someone he'd murdered. Once freed, and the dog retrieved alive, all the dogs live tonight, the family rallied around Perez and pursued a complaint. Fontana City agreed to pay $898,000 to Perez after a lawsuit, but they did not want to admit that the police had done anything wrong. And his lawyer said mentally torturing a false confession out of Tom Perez, concealing from him that his father was alive and well, was a level of deliberate cruelty by the police that he had not seen in his entire career. This case shows that if the police are skilled enough and they grew hard enough, he said, they can get you to confess to anything. Now how? Well, Ditch said earlier, most police aren't going to do that. Well, the LA Times summed it up. Across California and the US, detectives are trained to lie. They regularly use falsehoods to elicit confessions. They quoted detectives saying, "We have been with Mr. Perez all day, and we were running out of things to say to him to get the answer. We used a ruse to elicit certain information, and that is perfectly legal under the law." Everything they did was perfectly legal under the policies and procedures of the Fontana Police Department. So what do we think of that? He did sue. He sued the city, and he was given $900,000. But the police settled, they said, to avoid pursuing a longer court case, and did not admit that they had done anything wrong by their rules. Yeah, as Dick said, if this court case had gone to court and had been proved wrong, and they had made an admission that they'd done something wrong, it could render lots of other confessions unsafe. Of course, they may well be unsafe, and that's the problem. Yeah. Wow. So that was tonight's theme of dodgy confessions, with a little bit of Grand Guignol pig eating in the middle. What's interesting, I find interesting, is basically I've been going at this for now. I'm getting faster every week, every time I do this. But I've got the materials the same. The police were not fired. No, they aren't considered to have done anything wrong. Yeah, this is interesting. Am I getting faster and better at this? I don't know. Yeah, Ditch, that's a fair point. Yes, you would hope that everybody is looking at them for any possible excuse to jettison them. So, hope you've enjoyed those 3 stories. No one would ever trust this officer again. Exactly. Although, as we saw in the Christie case, it can be very hard to get any sort of admission of that sort of thing. Sydney says, how is your Jack the Ripper project going? It is ongoing. I've still got a lot of books to read. I've got a lot of work to refine and write. It's not imminent. I'm going to be honest. It's not an imminent project, even though I am working on it. We're up to 60,000 words. I have a shelf. In fact, let me see if I can do this right. All of this here is Jack the Ripper books. Many have been read, many are still to be read. Some of them are really good and reliable, and I own them because they're going to be great. Some of the ones you can see are absolutely terrible and can't be trusted, but it's still good to read these things because you've got to make your own opinions up and you've got to do your own research. So I don't really ever want to get into even the one that says that well, the tabletop guide probably does actually. I don't know. I'm not sure which one you've. The tabletop guide. I dread to think you've probably seen one of my Walgreens books from a lower shelf. I'm never going to publicly name any of these as really unreliable and terribly thought through. You know the book I'm referring to? Oh yeah, okay. Actually, before we go, I'm going to tell you a gaming true crime related thing. We've never discussed this, but I'm going to riff on it for a bit in a minute. But we'll do that later. So I'm never going to go into. You can clearly see a few titles in your some of them are really good, and some of the ones you can see are really awful. And that's all I'm ever going to say. I strongly believe that as a writer, I shouldn't criticise other writers' material. So I'm never going to do that. I'm going to say there's good and bad Jack the Ripper material, because in the history of true crime, you have to face the fact that Jack the Ripper has some of just the most bizarre, out there, fictional, made-up nonsense possible. If you want to talk about Jack the Ripper, you have to know that exists. But I'm going to pull in everything that is reliable and talk to you that way. So you have to know that you can't just pick a book up and trust it. There's a lot of bad things, but I'm never going to go, oh, that's really awful, because that's not how I work. But and I think it's important that if I'm going to say to you, I've written a Jack the Ripper book, that you have to do the research. You have to read things. You can't just go, oh, I've read a review and that's bad. You have to try it yourself. So basically, yes, Sydney, why is this not happening faster? Because there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot to read. The good news is, before certain events happened, I bought all the books, so it's all there ready. It's now basically free to research, and I've got loads of material online. Documents I've downloaded, loads of documents I've managed to download online. So there's quite a lot to do. I'm showing off books now. I love books. Look at my books. So there's quite a lot to do. Right, I'm going to do a board games riff now, and you may be thinking, what do you mean you're doing a board games true crime riff? Well, normally, and if any of you want to buy said books, they will be on eBay in the near future. Yeah, I mean, once I've finished this, I probably will sell all the rubbish ones. No, I won't. I like books. I'm keeping all the books. So there's quite a few. Normally, if you say, what do you mean there's a true crime board game? Well, these things seem to split down into sort of at-home semi-escape room puzzle games where you're solving a murder mystery. There's a number of board games where you're chasing or being chased by Jack the Ripper. Yes, Digit said you don't have space unless you want to sleep on the books. Well, look, they're all on shelves. Right, they are. Look, it's shelved. Anyway, a few years ago there was a Kickstarter for a company. Now this company appeared, kickstarted a board game, delivered that board game, and then vanished. None of their websites operate anymore. I have no idea why they decided to disappear. It's possibly because the times changed. Because they kickstarted. Their whole thing was they were going to do board games about famous murders. Yes, once again, imagine trying to get that past Twitter these days. And their first board game was the H.H. Holmes Murder House board game. Now, obviously, liking board game and true crime, and also liking really, really bizarre random nonsense. Ditchboy says, does a certain twice released but never delivered album also count as true crime? This is because I was a fan of a band who did a crowdfund for the band, which I paid for the album. And then the crowdfunder stole all the money, so the band tried again. I bought the album. And then essentially the bloke in the band sort of had an episode and they totally vanished. So technically I've paid twice. I've also brought a single. I think I paid for a vinyl of one of their singles, and I've never seen any of it. The music's not even on the internet. I don't even have the MP3s, and that's a true crime. That's a true crime. The sad thing is, the songs they did put up briefly were brilliant. Like, it's one of the great lost albums. It's just that I didn't really want to pay for it twice. I'm not bitter. Well, that's 4 true crime stories. It's bonus time for you tonight. Anyway, so I actually have the H.H. Holmes Murder House board game. Have I played it? No, I've not even unwrapped it. Why? Because the company then vanished, and it's such a bizarre, weird curio. It just sits there like, well, we don't really want to play the H.H. Holmes Murder House board game, do we? Because it's a bit weird. How do you invite anybody round? Right? How do you go, hey, board games guys, do you want to play the murder? You can't, can you? Perhaps that's why the company vanished. It's a very specialised item. I don't know. It's just one of the most bizarre things I own. So if anybody's watching this and you know where those people went and what happened to them and what they're doing now, I genuinely, out of love, would love to know what they went on to do. Right? This is not a complaint. Right? This is in no way being negative about it. It's just so bizarre. I would love to know what happened to them. And Cluedo is a murder mystery board game. Oh yeah, there is that. Yeah, obviously Cluedo is the original true crime board game. So before anybody comes in, yes, Tress is probably a true crime board game, but that's not going to it. Cluedo, that is a banger. So yeah, Cluedo. Right, in fact, I'm going to recommend you all something. Let me make sure I've got the name of this right. Right. If you're at home and you're watching this and you would like to play a genuinely fun, crimey board game, but not one that's like really insensitive, but that is genuinely family fun, I recommend you go and buy Micro Macro Crime City. Now, what is Micro Macro Crime City? It's brilliant. It is a massively huge map on which there are hundreds of people who are doing things. Imagine a vast black and white Where's Wally, and there's hundreds of little stories across it, and you are given little sets of cards. I think there's about 10, at least 10 cases in each box, and there's lots of boxes, and you use these cards and you have to study them up and find what happened and trace the crime and the trail. It is genuinely good family fun. It doesn't refer to anything real, which is a problem in true crime, I will admit. It's a great experience. It's not too ridiculous given the price of board games, and there's a lot of them. Somehow I've ended up recommending a board game to people. hey, why not? This is good. This is good. This is a good place for a stream to go, I feel. Right. I'm going to put it in chat because, yeah, I'm not quite... Sydney's not quite that. Ditch. At the risk of starting to sound like I'm bullying, doesn't true crime have to be real? Yes, it does. That's the true part. But the thing about something like micro macro, true crime is incredibly problematic because every true crime has victims and families, and it is difficult to sort of walk a line where you're not being insensitive about that, and I know that. The good thing about macro crime city is there's none of that. You can enjoy solving cases in a family friendly true crime way. Hello, Polly. So it's not true crime. It's sort of a crime game. Again, I can't recommend. I mean, how can you recommend the H.H. Holmes Murder Castle game? That's mad. Yeah, I did buy it. It's my fault. But there we are. So if you like a game, that's good. It's very highly reviewed. It won a lot of awards. Good fun. I think people who aren't into the nitty gritty of board games will find it fun. Don't know where she's gone. That's a bad sign. When you hear a meow and you can't see a cat, you do wonder. There's a lot of gaps here. She's a little cat and she fits in a lot of gaps. Often gaps I would prefer she may not get into. Like, yes, let's get out of the polymax. Where are you? Have you wandered off again? She's in a funny mood this evening. Polly update. She has successfully completed her 2 weeks of vet's visits. So she is a much happier cat. Last night, the first day off, she came on the bed and gave me a cuddle, which is the first cuddle I've had in 2 weeks. So we are now friends again. I've stopped being the bad man. I am now nice daddy. But for whatever reason, she's not decided to come in tonight. Because she's a cat and she does what she wants. And she doesn't really stick to my schedule. Ditch will be meeting her tomorrow. Ditch was very kind and took us to the vet. So tomorrow we were attempting to get Polly to associate Ditch with anything other than the vet. That's going to take I think it's going to take a while, if I'm honest. Yeah. I'm being told off for something. I imagine she's not. So this is the thing, right? In order to try and keep her happy, when she's been to the vet, I've been giving her lots of really highbrow treats. Like she's had sardines, she's had tuna, she's had cat milk, just to try and cheer her up because the vet's awful. Obviously, now she's finished the vet, I have a problem, and that problem is the cat still thinks she should have the sardines and the tuna and the cat milk, and Daddy doesn't actually have much money at the moment, and cat milk's bloody expensive. So she's probably sat there going, "Where's my treats?" So I may need to go and crack out some tuna or something, and see what's happening. Yes, Thelonious. It's gone wrong, Thelonious. It's gone terribly wrong. I've established a pattern. And I can't stop it now, can I? Oh well. Right. I think the cat felt... No, the cat milk is Ditch's fault. But she loved it. She goes mad for it. Sometimes... You know what it's like? Sometimes you put the cat milk down, she's like, yeah. And sometimes she puts the cat milk down, and it's like, well, I'll come back to that in 10 hours. It's great, isn't it? She will never forget it. No, I don't think she will, actually. She has to have a special kidney cat food, which she eats fine, until I was given a couple of pouches of quite posh normal cat food. So I thought, well, I'll put those. I'll get those in with her diet. Yeah, that was a mistake, because apparently that tastes massively better than your kidney cat food, which she's like, where's the Purina, man? Where's the Purina? Why am I eating renal cat food? You're eating renal cat food because you have a kidney problem. I don't care, I want my Purina. If anyone's watching, if Whisker's Cat Milk, Dreamies and Purina are watching, well, I can't really give her the Purina because she has to have the renal diet. But if Whisker's Cat Milk and Dreamies are watching and they'd like to sponsor this stream, I should point out, if you did sponsor this stream, Polly will still not appear on it. Because she's a cat. And, oh well. Yeah, they do. My friend gives all her cats cat milk, and I've been very good. I say I've been very good. It's been like 8 weeks, and then we decided to give her some cat milk. Is that the Hill KD? Fred, I don't know what that means, though, so I suppose you could elaborate a touch. Oh no, the Hill kidney diet. No. There is a special brand of cat food recommended by vets, and they do different things for different problems. So, as far as I know, it's not anything like that. It is just I don't really know what they put in it, but it is sold specifically 3 different flavours, plus some biscuits, all designed for cats with kidney problems, because Polly has stage 2 chronic kidney disease. However, stage 2 is fine. You can level it off there with her diet and some care and love. She will be absolutely fine, and it will not affect her. That's the key. It probably is. I was basically just told, just keep giving her this, and it won't get any worse, and she'll be fine. But it is something I have to bear in mind. I can't give her a lot of non-renal cat food. It's just not going to work. It would shorten her life, sadly. So that's what we do. Unfortunately, I gave her some actual non-renal cat food once as a treat. It's a problem. You've got a kid with kidney problems too. Yeah. But yes, I've been told as long as stage 2, as long as you keep feeding her the food and looking after her, it'll be all right. She's looking well now, though. She's looking great. So she's had her treatment. I don't want to sort of sound like I'm being soft about this, but I swear her fur is furrier and softer, and that she's doing great. Could just be me being the cat, but we shall see. I swear her fur has improved, which I think is a sign she's probably doing okay. Personality-wise, you wouldn't have known she was ill until the test came back, but maybe something like the fur is a good indicator. Anyway. A lucky kitty. Well, I like to think so. She's had, from what I can tell from the rescuers, she's had a really, really awful period in her life, which nearly killed her. But now she's going to have the best years of her life left. Yes. Yeah, there was a change in personality in the car visits. She got a lot. I don't know if. I mean, when I first started taking her to the vet, it was a bit like, oh, I'm going to meow angrily. Near the end, it was a bit like, and now you're going to chase me round the house, which is good. I'm pleased she was exhibiting signs of getting better, apart from when I had to chase her and catch her. Because she can be quite fast, even though she's 13. And I'm 47, and I'm not that fast. One day she was like, right, we're not going to run. I've got a new plan. And that plan was to stick her claws into the carpet. And I'm like, oh, this is actually a real problem, because I can't get you off the car. It took quite a while to disengage her from the carpet. So running around is probably better. Because at least you can, when you do get near her, you can grab her. Rather than thinking, well, what do I do now? And we had to change her cage, because as she was getting her carrier, I brought one of these. Oh, I'll just be a lovely, trendy, modern person and buy a fabric carrier. That was a mistake. As she got stronger, it looked like she was on the verge of working out how to break out of the fabric carrier. So I have now got a carrier that she cannot escape from. And she did seem to like that one a lot more anyway. Yours get up on top of the damn wardrobe. Polly would be up on top. If Polly was, I imagine Kitten Polly would be on the wardrobe. Although you can quite often see she's weighing up a jump. She's not quite got what she used to have, and every so often it'll ping in and she'll leap up. But I have no doubt that Kitten Polly would have been on the wardrobes and everything else. In fact, Thelonious, do you know the window story, Thelonious? Have I told this story in chat? If not, I'll tell you. Speaking of, so you said yours get up on top of the damn wardrobe. Yeah, do you want to know the window story, or do you know that one? Okay, the heart attack story, yeah. My heart attack, I should point out. No, I haven't. Okay, so I don't really know. I fostered Polly. She'd been here about 6 weeks, and I don't really know. I'm learning what she does and what she likes. And I haven't actually I've never had an open window. Anyway, one day so in front of me is a window. There's curtains. There's a window. I opened the window. I pushed the office door closed, and I went to make my tea. Yes, we will be getting to that. This is a first floor window. This is a first floor office. This is a bedroom, basically. So there's a window there. So I went to make my tea, and I heard the sound of a cat shoulder barging the office door open. And I'm like, well, I better go and close that window. So I get into my door, and what I see is her arse disappearing out of the window. Now, for a moment, I had forgotten that there was a flat porch roof, right? So she actually only went down about 2.5 feet onto the flat porch roof. But I'd forgotten I have a flat porch roof, and I'm having an actual heart attack because I think she's... Anyway, so I run downstairs, I go out the front door, and it's at this point I'm like, oh, thank God you're all right. But it becomes apparent, right? Polly is 13 and sometimes misjudges her jumps. She can't get back in. She literally can't get back in the window. And it's brick and plastic. It's not like in the garden where there's ivy. So she's on the roof. She can't get back in. And she can't get down. So I have to get a ladder and bring her down and bring her in. And when I brought her in, I have my panic attack. And obviously at this point I closed the window. So the window has never been opened again. Do you know what happened the next day? I'm sat working with a closed window. Polly comes running in and jumps over the monitor straight into the window because she wants to play the roof game again. We're not playing the roof game. I had to get a ladder. Which bit of a ladder are you struggling with? Anyway, it was 4 days. 4 days before she stopped trying to get out the window. So we don't really open the windows anymore. Because my cat's a lunatic. And this is a 13-year-old. Oh, sorry. Let me hang on. Yeah, sorry, Thelonious. It didn't. For some reason, Automod didn't like the word mongrels, which, as we're talking about cats and dogs, I think it's fine. Yeah, sorry about Automod there. This wasn't the first time she's nearly giving me a heart attack. No, no, it isn't. But it is the worst. Because for about in the space it took me to get from here to my front door, I was genuinely getting very ill because I thought she'd jumped all. I really thought she'd done herself an injury. It's funny now. It wasn't funny for a while. Nightbot says, if you're enjoying the show, then click the follow button. Yes, if you're enjoying my cat horror stories, do follow. There's also some true crime occasionally. But, you know, you need to, once you've had the true crime, you need a bit of a wind down. Yeah, an escape that gave you a heart attack. Oh, wow. Yeah, oh, dear. I bet that would. An escape, that's mad. Yeah. Yeah, I've been learning her meows, and we certainly learned a lot of them at the vets. She was gone for 8 days. Oh no, that's awful. Oh, that must be terrible. Oh no. But she came back okay, didn't she? She's with you now. I would not cope well if Polly disappeared for a long time. I would be very upset, I have to admit. So Sydney says, I saw a video yesterday of a hawk trying to get at a kitten. The kitten is inside of a car on the dashboard, and the hawk kept trying to grab it through the windshield and didn't realise what glass was. I imagine, Sydney, that the kitten was just sat there like, I know what glass is. Oh no, Sloane's driving the streets at times today. That's terrible. Sloane, actually, I know where I live. I'm not going to dox myself again. Where I live, there's a drone service. I know they do it for if your dog goes missing. They will put a drone in the air and search for your doggo. But there is we quite easily get very rural. This is not a heavily urban area, so obviously it's driving around's not going to help because there's lots of fields. But yeah, so they've got a drone. I don't know if they do it with cats. I don't know how easy it is to do it with cats. Yeah, the kids was completely cut. The kids just like, this is hilarious, mate. And the eagle's like, force field. There's a force field. I don't know if eagles like sci-fi. I imagine eagles like sci-fi. Right, everybody. I hope we've all had enough kitten content. I hope we've all had enough true crime content. We sneaked a bit of board game content in. Hopefully somebody at some point in time will be watching this VOD going, oh, I know the bloke in charge of H.H. Holmes' Murder Castle. I'll tell you what happened. Eagles sci-fi is a good place to finish, yeah. Eagles, they love a bit of sci-fi. Right, let's find somewhere to raid. I do feel, although we are supposed to be raiding more and different people, we may just go to the kittens because it's cat. We've had so much cat chat. Let me see who's on. Let me do the traditional thing of seeing who's on. If anyone in chat has any suggestions, if anybody knows someone who's on, it doesn't have to be just chatting. Just, you know, somebody you like that we could raid. Small is good. In fact, are there any dog fans in chat? In fact, I don't know what I've just seen, but it's very, very confusing. Let's not do that. Yeah, there's a guy I follow. And his stream title was "Help Me Raise Money for Puppies," and I thought that would be a great idea. So I just had a look at his stream. He's got 9 other streams on his stream. I'm just like, that would be insane. It's like some sort of CIA monitoring station. Dynaman is live, isn't he? Is he still live? Yeah. Okay. We'll go to paleontologizing because he's actually out. Because last time we went, he said he was going to be out in the wild. He's out in the wild now. If you're in Britain, I'll get the raid set up because I can talk for a bit after, can't I? Well, I've got a raid set up. So, in Britain, it's supposed to be the summer, and there has been no summer. But if you want summer, go and look at Paleontologiz's stream, where he appears to be in the middle of, well, let's just call it a desert, doing dinosaur stuff. So if you're in Britain and you'd be like, I really need some bright, sunny sun, and some hot weather, this is the one. He's out there. He's doing live paleontologizing. We'll go there. All right, thanks everybody for tonight. Sorry about the chaos at the beginning. I'll be honest, sitting down and discovering that OBS has decided not to talk to your mic and has actually blanked out all the mic setting options was a bit of a surprise and took me a while to adjust to. So sorry about that, and I will cut that out of the VOD. But I hope you've all enjoyed tonight. We will be back next Thursday at midnight for more true crime, for more talking about cats, and the new emote. Thank you. The new emote should be live. Thank you, Thelonious. Thank you for the kind comment. Support like that really helps me keep going. Let's go. Thank you, Sydney. Let's go to the desert and enjoy some heat.